Hello and welcome to the World of Optometry webinar. You are all very welcome to be here wherever you are joining us from today. My name is Kenrick Vorze, and today I will be facilitating today's webinar. I am joined by Yogita, who will be assisting me in moderating today's presentation. Before we get started, it is important that we cover some general housekeeping rules. Please ensure that all mics and cameras are off. This is to eliminate any background noise, which can cause feedback or disturbance to the speaker and other attendees. Please rename your electronic device with the name that you have registered with. This is the name that you will receive on your certificate of attendance. If your name on the device does not match the name that you have registered with for the webinar, you will not be able to get the certificate of attendance. To receive the certificate of attendance, you will be required to stay for the duration of the webinar, after which we will send you a simple review form to fill out via email. Please post your questions into the chat box feature. You can do this at any time throughout the presentation, and the speaker will be able to get back to you. Please address your questions to the everybody option. Yogita will be able to assist you with any technical difficulties. So if you are experiencing any issues with sound or picture, please let us know in the chat box feature. Also, Yogita will contact you to rename your electronic device during the presentation. If you have any queries about getting your certificate of attendance and this process, she will also be able to answer your queries. Today's presentation will last between 35 and 45 minutes, after which we will have a Q&A session. Today, I am delighted to present our guest speaker. His name is OB Malope, and he is a young, dynamic leader within the healthcare industry who has championed and pioneered various innovative products and solutions that is revolutionizing the way that businesses operate. Currently, he's the managing director of Vision Street PT Limited. Also, he's the co-founder of iAfrica Media. Without further ado, I now hand over to our speaker, OB Malope.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the wonderful Eyecare community, irrespective of where you are joining us from. It is a complete honor and a privilege to be able to participate as a speaker on this wonderful platform. What the world of optometry has been doing over the last year has truly been incredible, and the value that the platform is adding to hundreds and hundreds of optometrists and dispensers and ophthalmologists all over the world basically is truly phenomenal. And obviously I would have preferred to do this presentation in person, but unfortunately due to COVID-19 we all need to join via online platforms, but I feed all from the energy that I get from people that are in the room with me. So because I'm not physically there, it will be highly appreciative that if I say something during the presentation that you can connect with, that you don't understand, that you find interesting, or that challenges the way you've been doing things, please don't hesitate to connect on the chat box so that you can raise those questions as we go along to make this session as interactive and fun as we possibly can. Just a quick background on what I've been doing. I have written these books, except one of them. The pathology book was written by Mariki Silius, but the rest of them, it's one of the books that I've contributed in authoring and publishing over the last 5 years. And I'll put the details of the book later on. I'm running an academy here in South Africa or Africa where it's got different courses and people are able to subscribe to the online academy and access a whole range of business related courses. And please do connect with the company on all social media platforms and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as on my personal page. It will be fantastic to connect with all the wonderful people that are joining us today. And yeah, let's get going. The topic for today is going to be in 4 parts. Part 1, we will be looking at how do we unpack key components of eye care practices. That basically details where we are versus where we should be. How do we change our approach when it comes to interacting with our wonderful patients? Part 2 will business development, I'll give you some pearls or strategies that you can be able to think about so that you can go back into your practices and start implementing. Part 3, revenue enhancement strategies, and we'll close it off with part 4, improvement opportunities, because that's very, very important for you to know exactly when you leave this webinar presentation, what is the first thing that you'll need to do going back into your practices. And so, yeah, let's get going. With regards unpacking key components of eye care practices, this is our way of thinking about the journey of a patient within an optometric practice. Oh, let me go back here, sorry. So if you think of a journey of a patient within an optometric practice, we see it as having 8 different parts. And I'll start off by the image here on the top, or my left, top left-hand corner with the 2 gentlemen there. That is the first phase of a journey, and we refer to that phase as the part where you are providing information to the patient that is sitting in your chair. So when a patient comes in, the first thing that you want to build rapport, set the tone in terms of this person that's coming into your practice. They could either be the first time that they're coming into your practice for an eye exam, it could be the second time that they're coming, or it could be someone that has been coming for a very long time. What you need to be doing is sit them down, have a discussion, and not rush in to start doing all the necessary diagnostic. You, as an optometrist, are providing as much information as you possibly can to the respective patient. You're telling them, sir, this is what the eye examination is going to be involving. This is the procedures that we're going to be doing. This is the information that I will need from you, and so forth. Followed by the second part here with the child with behind the slit lamp. This is where we are examining now the individual. Remember, if it's a person that is coming to your practice for the very first time, you want to make a good first impression. You want to connect with that person. Let's say, for example, you are a young optometrist and the person that is sitting on your chair is someone nervous. They are also wondering, what do you know that will be able to help them as you look so young? If you're sitting in that situation, for example, as you're about to do the examination procedures, think of those difficult procedures, think of those difficult examination techniques that you know that this person, there's a higher probability, has never seen that particular procedure. Start with that procedure. This thing of always starting with the same routine with every single patient does not necessarily work, because the type of person that is sitting in front of your chair differs from patient to patient. So sometimes your job or your objective is to win the patient over. So when you are examining the patient, always ask yourself, how am I connecting with this person? How am I doing things that can lead to this person connecting with me? And it leads us back to this third image here with the lady holding the clipboard. This is the section where you now educate the patient. So you start off with providing information. You educate the patient. What is that important? When you're educating the patient, you want to give them as much information as possible, but more importantly, you want to establish trust. You want to build, show them that you know what you're doing, that them coming to you, it's more than you just giving them a pair of spectacles. You are concerned about their well-being. And that's why it's important for you to educate the patient, to explain to them, sir, the examination results so far are indicating the following. What you are complaining about indicates the following. And as we continue with the rest of the examination procedures, this is what I will be doing, and this is what will be the most likelihood management solution that will most probably go with. Are you with me? And that leads us to the fourth one here with the question mark, where you are now asking questions. You are building dialogue. You want to create a two-way conversation between yourself and the patient, so that any concern that they might have, as optometrists, to go through everything first, choose spectacles, choose contact lenses, and then only want to explain to a person how they're going to use that. It's very important that as you're going along with the different techniques, different procedures, you are constantly informing the patient, educating them, communicating with them as you're going along. And this image here with the boy being fitted with the contact lenses, I don't know how you guys are doing it in your respective countries, but depending on the prescription and depending on whether it's a first-time visitor to your practice and someone who is not wearing glasses or contact lenses, and you can see that this person will not be able to adequately select a pair of frames, put in the contact lens in their eye and go and select frames. They might not have come to your practice thinking of contact lenses, but coming there for spectacles, right? But the mere fact is to put contact lenses in their eye. It already gives you an opportunity to tell them more about contact lenses. So you are opening your options up in terms of the management solutions that you might prescribe will not only be limited to a pair of spectacles or contact lenses. So when you then start putting that contact lens in their eye, for example, if the situation is relevant for that specific patient, you then go out and then go select a pair of frames. After selecting that pair of frames that they need, and perhaps you've got a dispenser in the practice where that person does that, bring them on board. Let it be a collective collaboration in getting that pair of spectacles to that person. You come back into the examination room to show them, to indicate to them, this is where this lady here explaining to the elderly lady to say, ma'am, this is how you see without glasses. This is how you see with glasses. Do you understand? So even if you didn't put contact lenses and you put the lenses on a trial frame, get the patient to experience how life will look like, how their vision will be with versus without. And you getting the patient to be part of their process from start to finish. And then you obviously at the bottom here, once you have gone through that whole process, very, very important, before you get here, with this lady explaining this stuff, what is important is that you want the buy-in of the patient. That is the most important thing, that irrespective of the examination results, the management solutions that you can think of, you want the buy-in of the patient. And it's very important that you get the buy-in, because when you have the buy-in of the patient, the likelihood of them going with whatever you're recommending is higher. Remember, patients are always going to be thinking in terms of that which you are recommending to solve my vision problem. If I go with it, what will be the benefit or the value? If I don't go with it, what will be the consequences of me not going with what you are recommending? And so that is the journey of a patient. And most importantly, at the bottom here with the cell phone, the after-service care that you provide to the patient is just as important as the pre-service care that you provide. And that involves following up with the patient. And I'll show you a few slides now. How do you go about following up with your respective patients that come to your practice, whether it's a first-time visitor, a second-time visitor, or a person that has come to your practice multiple times. So now that we have established the journey of a patient, the next step that you have to think about is patient strategies. Remember, patients are influenced by different purchasing decisions. That could be value, that could be convenience, that could be customization. Patients belong to different market segments. Some are coming from high income earning environments, others are low incoming, others are middle incoming individuals. Patients are divided into different generation types. The 60-year-old patient who is coming from a middle income environment operates or thinks differently when it comes to eyes than a person who is a 20-year-old from a high incoming environment. So you need to always have that awareness with every single patient that comes into your practice, that what generation type do they belong in, what market segment do they belong in, and what are the most likely influencing factors that could play a role in them deciding what is best for their eyes. And so it's very, very important that you can categorize your patients as they walk in. On your test card, on your patient file, if you have a patient file, online patient file or a physical file that you are filling in, it's very important that you can indicate on the file, is this a first-time visitor, is this a second-time visitor, or this person has come multiple times? And you'll see why in a moment, why that is very, very important. So your patient strategies need to be specific to each and every single person. Why is this important? You have situations where a lot of practices just have 20 people coming in on a day-to-day basis in the practice. But if you ask the staff members, okay, how many first-time visitors have you seen this week? How many people came here for the second time? What was different with their second visit compared to their first visit? This patient that came here for the first time, how did we win them over? So you need to categorize your patients in different categories so that you can know what best strategy to implement or apply when you are managing that particular individual. And so at Vision Straight, what we have devised throughout our books, or how we communicate with practices, is that we say to practices, divide, or don't call everyone patients. We say, refer to the people that are coming to your practices as consumers. Once you have referred to them as consumers, you then say, okay, we've got patients, customers, and clients. What is the difference? Patients, that is that person who has never worn a pair of spectacles before. They have never had their eyes examined. They come into your practice for the first time because they've got a visual related problem. That's the patient. The customer is the person that perhaps has been at your practice before, or they have worn glasses before, but not necessarily at your particular practice. Whereas the client is the person that has been coming to your specific practice year after year for all their visual needs. And for the rest of this presentation, we will then give a breakdown in terms of what to look for when it comes to the patient, what to look for when it comes to the customer, and what to look for when it comes to the client. I will provide you with different approaches that are specific in being able to identify the different categories pertaining to the patient, the customer, and the client. And we start off like this. So we say that there are 9 different characteristics that define the patient from the customer and from the client. And this is the example of those characteristics. Remember, the patient is thinking, what is wrong with my eyes? So they need a diagnosis. Who's coming for the second time, perhaps they're thinking, since the last time I was here, are my eyes getting better, getting worse, or more or less staying the same? And so if you look at this breakdown, and I'll share the presentation afterwards with the World of Optometry Organizing Committee so that they can provide you with the presentation. But each and every one of them, they've got different challenges. The number one treatment plan the number one need for the patient, for example, is the treatment plan. Whereas for the customer is the cost implications. Why is that? The patient, is very important that when you are recommending a particular management solution for them, you recommend the very best, not necessarily what they can afford. Because if you limit the management solution to what they can afford, every time they come to the practice, they're going to go with what you gave them the first time. But if you automatic or already from the onset introduce what they need, even if they don't go with it, at least you have introduced what they're supposed to go with, and they have an awareness of what it is that they need, so that when they come for the second time as a customer, for example, you have a better chance of upgrading them from what they were wearing to what they should be wearing. And so I'll give you a practical example. Let's say sometime the previous time a person came to your practice, they never had an anti-reflective coating or blue control coating on their glass. Now they come. Now they're ready to go with what you're recommending. There will obviously be cost implications to the upgrade that you are going to now introduce to them. Whereas the client, their number one need is them feeling like you're treating them as the most important person to walk into your practice. So these 9 characteristics are something that I want you to just keep at the back of your mind as we continue with the presentation, so that you can see that, you know what, this is actually making sense, that the person that is coming to my practice for the very first time is not the same as the person that's coming to my practice for the 10th time. They have different characteristics that define them. And so how I communicate with them, how I manage them, how my team deals with them will differ from patient to patient based on that need. All right, so when you connect with us online, I will send you the answers to this screenshot that you have in front of you. And it's in our book, Business Guide to Optometrists. on page 124, what we have here in the book, we say, how do you know when to follow up with your different patients, the customer and the client? At 72 hours, for example, with the patient, there's specific things that you need to do when you're following up with the patient at 72 hours, at 10 to 14 days, at 3 months, at 6 months, at 1 year. That will be different to how you're following up with the customer or the client at the very same respective dates that we've indicated there. So if you're interested in knowing the breakdown in terms of when and how to follow up with the different people, on my email, send me an email or put it in the chat box so that we can give you the answers at the end of the presentation. All right, so what do I want you to understand from this section in terms of the unpacking key components of optometric practice with regards to the patient, the customer, and the client? What's very, very important is that each and every one of them, the overall consumer experience is very, very important. The most ideal situation that you want to find yourself in as a practice with regards to the patient is you want for the patient at the end of the experience to say things like, I didn't realize how detailed an eye exam is, or that was one of the best experiences that I've had when I go to a doctor. You want someone to say something like that at the end of the experience. For example, a customer who is wearing glasses for the very second time, you want them to say, you know what, I've had my eyes tested before, and the optometrist that saw me did not go into as much detail as you did. So thank you for that. I feel like, you know what, this was the best eye exam that I have ever received before. That's what you want a customer to say. For example, with a client who has been coming to your practice year after year, the overall consumer experience is, wow, I'm amazed at how you keep on improving each time I come to your practice. You see the difference between the three? The patient wants something different to what the customer wants, to what the client wants. And so the experience that all of them will want to take from your practice is very, very important for you and your entire team to be thoroughly able to have an awareness of. Next point here. In everything that you do with regards to the patient, the customer, and the client, one thing that is very, very important is you must always show empathy, build trust, and that has a potential of leading to loyalty. And that can only take place when you're communicating effectively with each and every single person that comes to your practice. Don't see your patients, your customers, your clients as just a number. Don't just be going to the practice day to day, chasing that sales target. See that person as someone that, you know what, this pair of spectacles that I'm going to prescribe to this person is going to change their life in the following manner. And they need to know, they need to see, they need to experience that you care about their vision, you care about their well-being more than you care about the money that they're going to spend in your practice. So empathy, trust, and loyalty is what should be a priority in your practice, not the numbers. That will come at the later stage once you've established that. Next, always ask yourself, what makes you stand out? Patient could have gone anywhere else for that first eye exam, but they decided to come to your practice. So a question that you need to ask yourself, what makes you stand out? For that customer who was at another optometry practice before and now has decided to come to your practice, what are you doing that will be better than where they went before that makes you stand out? So always ask yourself that question, what makes you stand out as a practice? Communication is very, very critical. How you communicate with your patients should also be in line with how the rest of your team communicates with your patient. So you, on a weekly basis, you need to make sure that you guys are all on the same page in terms of how you're communicating with the respective people in the practice. And always remember, I keep repeating this, the after-service care protocols are just as important as the pre-service care protocols. So follow up. If you don't follow up on those patients, those customers, those clients, and if you, let me put it this way, if a person comes to your practice and gets a pair of spectacles today, and it's their first pair of spectacles, and you did not follow them up within that first year or the second year, and the second time that they ever hear from you is 2 years later when you are sending them a reminder for them to come for their follow-up examination. That makes absolutely no sense. That means you have not personalized that consumer experience that you see right there at the very top. You need to personalize the experience. And so following up gives you the opportunity to personalize that experience, so that if it's a first-time wearer or someone that comes from another practice to your practice, or someone who you upgraded their pair of spectacles, there are ways in which you're supposed to follow up with each and every one of those scenarios. When you follow up, it shows that you care. It shows the patient that it was just what you were doing was more than you getting money out of them, but you actually want to know how are they experiencing this pair of spectacles or contact lenses that you have prescribed. So that's basically what I want you to understand in that first section. Now, it gets more interesting. Part 2, business development sections. I hope I'm not moving too fast. If I am moving too fast, I'll try and slow it down a little bit. And so when it comes to business development within your practice, there are 4 main things that you need to think about. Number 1, now that we are in a pandemic-influenced environment, what is it that within my practice do I need to do more of that I was not doing before? What is it that I need to do less of that I was doing too much of it? Number 3, what new thing do I need to create and introduce within my practice? And number 4, what do I need to eliminate that is no longer relevant or serving its purpose anymore within the practice? So at the end of the day, the question is, you want to maintain peak performance levels. And so these 4 questions that you have to ask yourself will be broken down as follows. I hope you guys all have a notebook right in front of you and try and answer this next section as we go along. So take out a notebook, put it in front of you, grab your pen, and let's go. Because I'm going to ask you specific questions, slide off the slide, that I would hope that as I'm asking the questions, you would then try and think what is the most relevant answer pertaining to your practice right now. And so these consumer profile assessment questions that we're asking are as follows. And try and answer it as best as possible. And be honest with yourself, because it's going to hold you accountable when you leave this webinar today. On Monday morning, you're going to have to sit with your team and say, guys, on the weekend, OB shared this webinar, and these are the things that he detailed. And I want to give these questions to you guys so that you guys can give me your answers, so that you have a better understanding of what you think is happening in your practice as a business owner, as an optometrist, might be different from what's happening from your team's perspective. So the first question here is, when it comes to the case history, for example, we always know that we get the general lifestyle, when their experience or previous history pertaining to their vision, right? But what we always say as well is, go beyond the normal questions that you're asking. The reason why you need to go deeper with your questions that you are getting from patients, you want to establish from the onset, what is the one thing that bothers this patient more than anything else? And if it's not a patient and it's a customer, you want to know that this person is wearing glasses for the second time, or they're coming to an eye exam for the second time. You want to know as much information as possible about their previous experience. The optometrist that gave them the pair of glasses for the first time, what did they tell them about their vision? Do they have an understanding of how do they clean the nose pads, the frames? How do they clean the lenses? What were they wearing their glasses for? How were they wearing their glasses? What was most frustrating about this pair of spectacles that they got? What was the most exciting thing about this pair of spectacles? How did their lifestyle change? How did their vision environment change? You want to get as much information from the case history as you possibly can. Don't go in this routine of always just asking the same old questions without probing each every single patient, customer, or client in as much detail as you possibly can. Digital oriented environment, but not all patients are digitally orientated. So what medium do your consumers use to get information from you regarding your business? And if some of you will say social media, some of you will say website, others will say your brochures, your your print material that you have. Others will say referrals. Then if you say, for example, referrals, I want you to ask yourself, for every referral that you have ever received, do you, if let's say Sunil comes to your practice and they say that they were told about your practice from Mohammed, for example, and Mohammed has been coming to your practice for the last 6 years, does your practice pick up the phone and call Mohammed and thank about Sunil? Do you send any form of communication that shows Mohammed that you appreciated the referral that they did about Sunil? Something to think about. That so many practices will say referrals are the biggest reasons why people keep coming to the practice, but they don't pick up the phone or they don't communicate with the people that did the referrals. Think about that. Very, very important. If you guys have any experiences pertaining to that, please put it in the chat box. I would love to hear what you guys think about that. Do you know which of these mediums, and what I mean by these mediums is these ones that we've just indicated on this slide, do you know which of these mediums carry the most weight? So if it's referrals, goes back to what I was saying previously. Do you follow up on that? So keep that question at the back of your mind. Do you fully understand how consumers experience your products, services, solutions offering when they are using them? Is it something that someone is actually checking, especially for people that you have upgraded from what they were wearing before to a new product? Do you follow up with them in terms of how do they now experience this new product? If it's the patient, do you bother following up to say, now that you are not wearing glasses and now you have been wearing glasses for the last few months, how are things now going for you? A person who might say, OB, we don't have time to do all those things. That's why that you don't personalize the experience. We're living in times now where you have to personalize the experience, because when you personalize the experience, it means every single person that walks to your door matters. And that's how you attract more patients to your practice. Are you aware of any problems consumers encounter with regards to your services? What new thing have you introduced in your business now that it's 18 months later in the pandemic? And how are people experiencing that new service that you were not doing there before? So some questions that you guys just need to think about. Do you know why patients, customers, or consumers, let me put it that way, do you know why consumers choose your brand over others? Is it the value experience? Is it the products, the services? Look at all of this. So each of them, there are 10 things here. Each of them, give them a number. Literally give it a number to say, okay, value experience is a 5. Products, we've got amazing products. It might be an 8. Your location, it might be a 2. And remember, 1 is the lowest, 10 is the highest. So ask yourself, why do people choose your brand as compared to choosing another brand? Next, why do they choose another brand as compared to your own brand with the same questions? So this one was, why do they choose your particular brand over others? Whereas the follow-up question is, why do they choose another brand as compared to choosing yours with the same points that you need to consider? Do you know which kind of consumers are the most valuable to you? Because why is that question important? Remember earlier on, I said patients are divided into generation types. You have people that are part of the millennials, some are baby boomers, some are generation X, some are high incoming earners, low incoming earners. Some are coming to your practice for the 10th time, others are coming to your practice for the 2nd time or so. So which kind of patients or consumers are the most valuable to your company right now? Do you know what consumers say about your brand or about your practice when they discuss it or recommend it to others? And what is it that, based on these things that we have outlined on the screen, what do you think they talk about when they're talking about it to other people? How do you receive input from consumers regarding the experience that they've experienced in your practice? Nothing at the current moment? Is there after service follow-up calls that you do? Social media? Is there a feedback card? What do you do? Or are you doing anything else outside of what we have indicated here? Because if you're not gathering information from your patients about how they're experiencing the services, the products, the overall experience from your practice, how then would you know what to improve? where you are falling behind, where are you doing very well? These are very, very important questions that you need to ask yourself. And how do you acknowledge this input from consumers? And once you have changed whatever that you need to change, do you go back to them and say, this is what we have changed, this is what you recommended, is it now better? We would love your feedback on that. All right, so I hope that was some questions that you guys can think about. And now the next section here, revenue enhancement. We're going to mention the same stuff that we were talking about in the previous section, about the value experience, the products, the services, the solution offering, the location, the expertise, convenience, trustworthy brand, company culture, team, and leadership. And what we have done with these two slides, we have broken it down in terms of making it specific to the patient, the customer, and the client. Because what's very important, you need to be able to exceed consumer expectations. Remember, every patient has expectations, every customer has expectations, and every client has expectations. So how do you exceed every one of those expectations with regards to these 10 characteristics that we have outlined? So for example, with the value experience, look at what we wrote here for the patient. You need to dispel any misconceptions that they might have had regarding their eyes being tested. Remember, patients might feel that I don't want to go to the optometrist because whether I need glasses or not, if I go to the optometrist, they're going to tell me that I need glasses. That could be something that you need to think about with regards to a patient. Whereas the customer, their current experience, so when they're sitting in your chair at that particular point in time, and it's not the first time that they come to your practice, but the second time, or it's the second time that they're going to be getting a pair of glasses, the current experience needs to be far better than the previous experience that they had, whether it was in your practice or any other practice for that matter. And look at services for patients, make a great first impression. But we say for the customer, someone who has already been wearing glasses, we say you need to set your standards very, very high. Whereas with the services regarding your client, they want to see, or you want to know, are you improving on what you are offering in your practice from the first time that they started coming to your practice to now, 10 years later. Let's look at some of the other examples. Trustworthy brand. Look at what we say for the patient. We say empathy and compassion in your messaging and your activities is how you build a solid brand with regards to the patient. But with regards to the customer, you have to have excellent service delivery. That is the best way to establish a solid brand pertaining to the customer. But with regards to the client, loyalty is what makes the difference pertaining to them seeing your brand as a trustworthy brand. And here's the other thing about consumers. When you have gotten this breakdown between customers, patients, and clients, it means you're not always going to be waiting every 2 years for a person to come and get a brand new pair of spectacles. It means at 6 months, at 1 year, at 1.5 years, at 2 years, you will know when to reach out to the different types of consumers that come to your practice. When there are new specials, you know that certain types of customers or certain types of clients want you to communicate with them when you've got new products in your practice, even though they're not due for an eye exam, but they might like a brand new pair of spectacles, even though they're not due for an eye exam, simply because they are loyal to your brand and they will keep coming and buying from you because of that loyalty. So that's why you need to know, are you having a trustworthy brand to your respective consumers? Look at the expertise. How do you create a wow factor for the patient? You educate the patient. How do you create a wow factor for the customer? It's all about the experience that they get when they're at your practice. It needs to be something better, something outstanding, something remarkable that they have never experienced before. That's how you create a wow factor. And then with the client, don't be complacent. They want to see changes. They want to see innovation. They want to see you remaining relevant, current, doing things that you were not doing 5 years ago and improving on what you were doing. And so this is how you exceed expectations pertaining to the patient, the customer, and the client. And this table, hopefully you guys have taken pictures of this table, and you can ask me more questions about it when we're done very shortly. And so what I want you to take away from this particular section is you need to identify your own unique value proposition, because of, if you remember this section here with all these questions that we were asking, it was you to establish where are you the strongest and where are you the weakest. Because think about it this way. Remember at the beginning of this section, we asked you this question. We said, what do you need to raise? What do you need to reduce? Answered all these questions. If I go forward again on this section here, it will give you an indication. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? Where are your opportunities? And where are your threats? Because that's very, very important for you then to answer this question here. Where or what is your unique value proposition? Because when you know what your unique value proposition is, you'll be in a better position to do remarkable things within your practice, so that every single consumer that comes to your practice experiences something that they have never experienced before. Next, you want to make sure that you are always training your team on the value that you guys have established or agree upon. Next, outline what the standard of excellence is within your practice. It's very important that you guys as a team are constantly evaluating, are we doing an excellent service pertaining to this area of the business, this area of the business, that area of the business, and so forth. Don't become complacent and just keeping on with the same routine week after week, month after month, year after year, and expecting more patients to come to your practice. If your service excellence is not at the stop coming to your practice and go to a practice that offers them that unique value experience. And know exactly how to effectively communicate with the consumers in terms of the patient, the customer, and the client. And always look at ways in which you can outperform the market with regards to the value that you add. And last section here, and this is the last slide basically, we always say, how many webinars have you guys listened to over the last year? How many online conferences? It all means nothing if you don't have a plan of action to say, this is what I learned in that particular webinar. This is what I'm going to do with my team. This is how we're going to implement this information in the practice. And this is how we're going to monitor this strategy now that we have learned and evaluate whether it's an effective strategy or not. If you're not doing that, then all these webinars that you keep attending, all these online platforms that you keep joining are a complete waste of time. If you're not having an urgency in implementing the information at it. And so a strategy here for you guys, it's a 5-week program. Week 1, discuss the purpose, the why with your entire team. Week number 2, it's all about people, establishing the culture in the practice, establishing what sets your team apart from any other practice, establishing what makes your people strong, what makes them be excited about the working environment, what makes them look forward to coming to work. You want to focus about your team. What can you do to bring out the best out of your team? The 3rd week, that's when you discuss processes within the practice, all the operational matters that are important. That's what you discuss in the 3rd week. The 4th week, it's all about your products. And the final week, it's all about the sales. So week 4, you do training on products, and week 5, you do training on sales. At the end of week 5, you repeat the whole process. And each time you do it, you focus on one particular topic within this 5-week program that will be specific enough for your practice so that you then can create a file. Have a file. I actually have one here. Have a file and have a file where you say at the top here, you can say week 1, week 2, week 3, and so forth, and have different people implementing the strategies every time, or implementing the training or championing the training every time you have a particular focus week. So if you're not having this constant training week after week on something specific in the practice, very soon you'll find yourself doing the very same thing over and over again and not seeing any specific change within the practice. So basically, those are the strategies that we were recommending for you guys today. I hope I did not go too fast, but I hope that this simple breakdown of key components of optometric practice, of business development questions that you need to ask, of revenue enhancement strategies that you need to implement, and on this part 4, improvement opportunities, gives you perspective on how to think differently pertaining to your optometric practice. And very, very important, always follow up. Like I said, I've been mentioning this from the beginning of the presentation. So you end it off by following up, looking at whether or not that which you are implementing, that which you are changing in the practice is effective enough in helping your business grow to the next level. And yeah, that is it. One of the other companies that I run with, one of the most incredible human beings is Dr. Daryl Glover. It's iAfrica Media. Please connect with us as well online, and also follow us on social media on Instagram, and it will be great to connect with you guys throughout all these platforms that we on. And so, yeah, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Wow. OB Malope, excellent presentation right there. Thank you so much for the information. I felt like that was like a business seminar just for optometry itself, because some of the perspectives I've never seen it before, especially that one with the consumer, seeing them as a consumer. That's an excellent tactic as well there. So we're going to look at we have some submitted questions prior to the webinar. So let's look at those first. Okay, I hope you all see my screen there. The first question, what are the keys for customer retention in an optometric setting? And I believe you will have touched on this as well there in the presentation.
Yeah, so thank you very much. That's a very, very important question. And it's very important because if you don't know how to retain your existing customers, you won't know what to do to attract new ones. So I think exactly. The breakdown that I gave in terms of breaking up your consumers in patients, customers, and clients gives you clear strategies on what you need to do pertaining to each and every single person. And so it's very, very important to know that how you communicate with your first-time patient or first-time visitor, which is the patient, is different from how you communicate with the follow-up visitor, which is the customer, and is different from how you communicate with the client who has been coming to your practice year after year. If you are clear on how to identify and communicate with the different consumers, it makes it easy for you then to know how to exceed those consumer expectations that we just mentioned in part number 3.
Excellent. So we're looking at different approaches there for consumer, client, and patient. Okay, and here we have question 2. Do you think telemedicine in the optometry field is effective?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
And I'll answer it this way. For practices that have always been relying on basic optometric services, on just general optometry, it's not effective, because when you are just providing basic optometric services as a practice, you tend to focus more on specials, discounts, and charging things for free and things like that. So when you now have to introduce telemedicine in your practice, when you are offering basic optometric services, you will not be able to charge for the services that you are rendering via telemedicine. But if you are providing advanced optometric care, if you are going beyond just doing just providing a pair of spectacles, for example, and you are literally doing advanced clinical work where you are not dependent on sales, discounts, specials, then it means patients are coming to you because of your expertise. And so when you are introducing telemedicine to a patient and you're communicating with them via WhatsApp, via any form of online platform, you will still be able to charge effectively for those services and still be able to generate revenue from those telemedicine. So for telemedicine in optometry to be effective, you have to provide advanced clinical services on a day-to-day basis already within the practice so that you can see the effectiveness of telemedicine. Otherwise, you're wasting time, you're wasting patients' money as well.
Excellent, excellent answer there. And I hope you guys took that down. Hope you guys have your notebooks there. Excellent information right there. This will be the last question from the submitted ones. It has been said that most businesses fail within the first year. What major factors do you think will help assistants avoid being part of that statistic? Businesses failing in the first year.
Fantastic question. Planning. Optometrists tend to just look at, oh, I need to open up an optometry practice. Remember, at university, we are trained on the academic side of optometry and the clinical side of optometry. But the business side of optometry only happens when we get to final year of our optometric studies. And at that stage, it's too late. The best way to avoid it is to plan, to say, you know what, I might not be good when it comes to my finances. I might not be good or have a good understanding when it comes to estate planning, dealing with rentals, dealing with suppliers, dealing with all of these different types of dynamics. So if you plan effectively, you are then able to mitigate against the challenges that might arise within that first year. And study further. I think before you open up your practice, go and get that extra course on finance, go and get that extra course on business that can literally, because we are academically and clinically orientated in our thinking. We're not business orientated in our thinking. So I think if we can change our thinking as optometrists, while we are still studying first year optometry, it will help us to be better positioned in addressing any challenge that might arise in our first year in running a practice. Secondly, don't be too quick to open up your optometry practice. Work in different working environments and learn as much as you possibly can working in different optometric practice models so that when you decide this is the route that I'm taking, this is the type of practice that I want to have, you are then in a better position to understand your market, to understand what value you'll be bringing to the area and whether or not you will be able to do something that the rest of the people that are doing the same thing would be different from what you are going to be doing. So if you can approach it that way, I think you stand a better chance of succeeding within that first year and the first few years within your business.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So we don't want to get tunnel visioned there in terms of that. Let me just check the chat here. So we didn't have any questions from the chat, but I'll give it a few seconds. If anyone has any questions, we can see to it now. You can send any chat box feature here as well. Also,
I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. So also if you have any, okay, here we have one, but before I read it, if you have any questions at all, we have the email there on the screen, so you can also shout to OB there as well. So we have from Josephine. Hi, very informative topic. May I please ask this question? In terms of follow-up, how often do you charge a professional fee? Is it every visit, regardless if this is for follow-through checkup, where the patient assess if your management is working? So how do you charge a professional fee in terms of that follow-up?
I love that question. I absolutely love that question. I'll answer it in this way. When you go to the doctor, when you go to the dentist, when you go anywhere else that you're going to get healthcare services from, every time you go, they charge you. The reason why they charge you is that patients, when they see any other healthcare professional, they trust those healthcare professionals. You know who patients don't trust? Patients don't trust optometrists because we have not put forward our clinical expertise, our academic expertise above our business needs within our optometric practices. So at the remember that slide, that very first slide that I showed, where I said the journey of a patient? The very first thing that I said is you provide information. When you are providing information, that if you follow that journey that I mentioned, the whole point of that is to establish trust, build that connection with that patient, so that when you are busy, remember I said provide education, examine, and then educate. When you are educating the patient, you're already setting up that tone to say you might, if you're wearing contact lenses, if you're wearing spectacles, if there are other visits, this is how the routine of you coming back to the practice every single time will work out. So you set the tone from the onset in terms of this is your new journey that you are going to take with you. If we find that you are having issues with this, this, and this, you're going to have to come back to the practice for those needs to be met. And you then get, you don't have, if it's 600 to charge for an eye examination, the first one, the second one can be far cheaper than the first one. So it does not necessarily have to be the same price, but you can just make it slightly cheaper than the first one. That's how I would approach it.
Okay, excellent answer there. And it's interesting to see that these things are actually worldwide. So OB there is South Africa, right? And possibly Josephine where she is. And look, we're seeing the same, exactly what you are seeing. I see it here as well where I am at. So it's interesting to see that. We have another question here from Alicia. Good day. I would like to know how a new business owner goes about sourcing suppliers for their products. Do you obtain this information from working for someone before? How do you go about sourcing suppliers?
Fantastic. Look, we are fortunate enough now with people that want to go into optometry businesses that there's a wealth of information on different optometric websites. So I think it's just a matter of spend time in other practices. Don't rush to go into different practices. I mean, to open up your own practice. The reason why you need to move around from practice to practice is you get to establish why is it that in that particular practice, they're using different suppliers than in another practice. So why is it that, and you must remember your target audience, the community that you're going to be servicing, where your practice is going to be located, will determine the type of products that you're going to be needing to service that particular community. Right. So I think spend time in different practices and research. I used to go on I would go on Google when I started my business. Go on Google optometric contact lens companies in my country, frame suppliers in my country, and you will see a whole list. And then you go pick up the phone, visit the head offices, and go and spend time in their businesses to learn in terms of, if I go with this supplier, what makes them relevant or suitable for my particular practice. That's the best way that I would recommend you go about it.
Excellent. Excellent there. And I guess that's where the networking as well would come in there as well also. Josephine said she's from the Philippines, and thank you. I guess I have to consider follow-up fee started from Monday. Okay, Josephine.
Absolutely.
Okay, well. So I guess that will be it there for the questions. Thank you so much, Obi, for answering those questions. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we may not have answered all the questions. If you have any further questions, be sure to use the email that was just on the screen, and the speaker would be an endeavor to get back to you. I will now close off today's session. Thank you so much for your attendance today. Your thoughts are very important to us, and we will be sending you an email for you to fill in and submit a short feedback survey to complete the requirement for your certificate and to guide us in the future presentation topics. Guys, the next World of Optometry webinar will be on August the 28th, and it will be by Dr. Garish, and he will be talking about research in optometry. I will now bring today's presentation to a close. I wish you all a very good day. Thank you very much, Obi.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. All the best, guys. Connect with me and all the businesses that I run. And I would love to hear from you guys. You guys have my email. I would love to hear from you guys. Looking forward to connecting. Take care.
Excellent. Keep safe. Bye.
Bye.